This happened back in 2019, a few months before the world shut down. It was my first cruise, Caribbean, 7 nights, supposed to be all sunshine and mai tais. I was traveling with my sister Emily and two friends from college, Lena and Jess. We were celebrating our collective 30th birthdays. None of us were into party scene anymore, so the idea was to chill on the water, eat way too much food, and maybe flirt with some bartenders and avoid anything remotely stressful. That's not how it went. We boarded one of those floating skyscrapers, a 15-deck mega ship with pools, water slides, clubs, spa, and about 5,000 people on board. I won't name the cruise line because I've read enough fine print to know they don't like these stories going public, but let's say it's one of those big ones. Everything was fine the first day. We settled into our cabin on Deck 9, a basic interior room with no windows but decent space. That night, we did the usual buffet dinner, comedy show, then wandered around taking photos and drinks from every bar we could find. At some point, Lena got the idea to explore the lower decks, especially the ones marked crew only. She's the kind of person who thinks rules are more like suggestions. We found a fire door tucked behind the vending alcove on deck 12. It should have been locked, but it wasn't, so we went through. What we found wasn't exciting at first, just a narrow corridor with industrial lighting and blank metal walls. Not creepy, just boring. But then we saw a stairwell that wasn't on any passenger maps leading down. There were no signs, just a metal number painted near the ceiling. 13. We thought they skipped deck 13 on ships the way buildings do, but apparently not. Everything changed when we stepped onto that deck. The hum of the ship engines, HVAC, distant chatter, all faded. It was silent, heavy, and oppressive kind. The hallway smelled like mold and salt. And heat? It's hard to explain, like the air had been cooked. There were doors on both sides, all closed, unmarked. Then we found one that was slightly ajar. Inside was a small room with bare metal bunks. No mattresses, no linens, just rusted frames. It looked abandoned. That's when Lena asked, "Do you hear that?" It was a whisper. No, multiple whispers. Soft, hissing voices, not in any language we could identify. Not quite coming from a specific direction. It felt like it was coming from the walls. Emily stepped back and her flashlight caught movement. There was a woman. A stewardess, based on the faded old-fashioned uniform. She walked past the open door without looking in. Her feet didn't quite touch the floor, she just glided past us, slowly, like she was walking through water. Her skin looked gray, not just pale, but like the color had been leached out of her. And as she passed the open door, she vanished, just disappeared into the wall. We ran, back to the stairs, through the door on deck 12, sprinted until we found real people again. We tried to laugh it off, maybe we'd seen a projection or were tipsy and imagining things. None of us wanted to be that person telling ghost stories 2 days into a cruise. But things got worse. That night, the faucet in our cabin bathroom turned on by itself. We heard dripping, even when everything was shut tight. The temperature in the room dropped dramatically around 2 a.m. and stayed freezing until sunrise. Jess woke up with scratches on her back, 3 long ones, starting from the base of her neck to her shoulder blades. She swore she hadn't touched anything. The next night we heard tapping, faint but rhythmic. It started on the wall beside the beds, then moved to the ceiling, then under the floor. It kept going until 3:13 a.m. We checked the specific time because a pattern, 3:13, every single night. Night 4 was the worst. Lena woke up, screaming. We all scrambled out of bed and turned the lights on. She was sitting up, wide-eyed, pale as a ghost. She said she woke up and couldn't move. Sleep paralysis, but she saw the woman from deck 13 standing at the foot of her bed, soaking wet, hair hanging like seaweed and eyes rolled back, mouth moving like she was speaking but no sound. Then Lena said the woman leaned forward and whispered, "This isn't your room." That's when we went to the front desk. The woman working there didn't seem surprised. She asked our room number, typed something into her computer, then looked at us for a long second. "We can move you to a room on deck 14. Complimentary." She didn't ask for details, didn't say I'm sorry, and just moved us. On our last night, we met a bartender who'd been with the cruise line for years. He was chatty, friendly until we mentioned Deck 13. His expression changed instantly. He leaned in and said, "That deck's not supposed to be open. Some ships seal it off entirely. Back when this ship first launched, it had crew quarters down there. One of the stewardess died in a fire. Electrical short in the laundry room. She got trapped behind the sealed fire door, burned alive while the sprinklers failed. We didn't say anything." He nodded toward the drinks. "Sometimes people still see her. They say she keeps checking rooms, making her rounds, and doesn't realize she's gone. And if she thinks you're in her old room..." He didn't finish that sentence. We got off that ship the next morning, and I've never been on one since. I still hear tapping sometimes. In my apartment, in the shower at exactly 3:13 a.m. This story isn't about a haunted room or a ghostly figure. It's worse, because I still can't tell if what happened was paranormal, or if I somehow stepped outside the reality for a few days and was allowed to come back. I booked the cruise through a last minute deal site. It was weirdly cheap, like too cheap, but it looked real enough. 5 nights, all meals included, and no kids allowed. Honestly, that sounded perfect. I was burned out, recently single, and working remotely. If I disappeared into the sea for a while, no one would care. The ship was called the Ocean Dreamer. Thing is, I've never been able to find that name again. No website, no reviews, nothing in my emails except a confirmation with a broken link and a PDF ticket. I swear it was real. I stepped onto the ship. I have photos. Some of them, at least. Day 1. No signal. I boarded in Miami. The dock was empty. No crowd, no security, just a metal ramp, a single attendant in a white uniform, and a fog so thick it blurred the ocean. The ship was quiet. I assumed people were already on board, but when I entered the main lobby, it was just silent. No music, no chatter. Everything gleamed like it had just been polished, but it felt more like a museum than a party. I got my room key, no number, just a card with my name on it, and the word Tide. My cabin was stunning, bigger than my apartment. Huge windows, no TV, a wardrobe full of white linen clothes that somehow fit me perfectly. I don't remember packing anything, but I had a toothbrush and a journal on the desk with my initials engraved on the corner. I don't remember ordering that either. My phone had no signal, no Wi-Fi, not even GPS, just the time, which always read 4:44 p.m., no matter how many times I reset it. Day 2. I tried to find other guests. The dining room was set up for dozens, but only a few people sat in silence, dressed in white, calmly eating clear soup and little crackers. No one looked up, no staff. When I tried to talk to someone, an older man, I got this blank polite smile and he said, "It's not time yet." "What isn't time?" "For the return." He went back to sipping his soup like I hadn't spoken. The strangest thing was that I saw the same man again at dinner. Same seat, same bowl of soup, same movements. I watched him take the spoon to his mouth, tilt it, pause, sip, blink, and then repeat it. Exactly. Over and over, like a video loop. When I walked by him again the next morning, "Yes, same seat," he finally said. "We're watching too closely." Day 3. At some point, I found the top deck. No pool, just lounge chairs facing the ocean. Though I never saw the sun, moon, or stars, just gray. The water was always calm, too calm, like glass. We never docked, never passed land, no birds, no other ships. A woman sat beside me one afternoon watching the sea. I asked her, "Where are we going?" She said, "It's not where, it's when." "What does that mean?" "Some people come here after accidents," she said. "Some after choices. "You look like a stray." Then she turned to me and her eyes were completely black. Not evil, just empty. "Don't open any locked doors," she added. "They're not locked for you. They're locked for them." Then she walked away. Day 4. I couldn't help myself. I wandered into the restricted hallway. No cameras, no lights, just one door at the end. It was covered in seaweed, and I swear it breathed. There was a sound behind it, like a giant, slow heartbeat echoing through the metal. I reached for the handle, and the second my fingers touched it, I heard my own voice whisper in my ear, "I'm not ready." I ran. I swear the hallway got longer the faster I moved. That night, when I looked in the mirror, my reflection didn't match me. It blinked before I did, smiled when I didn't. It leaned in slightly forward towards the glass and mouthed something. I couldn't hear it, but I could feel it. "You weren't invited." Day 5. I woke up in my bed. Not the crew's bed, my bed, back home. Phone blinking with unread notifications. Messages from friends asking where I'd gone. My apartment looked just as I left it, except one thing. On my coffee table was a white cruise room key card. No logo, no number, just the word "Tide." Postscript. I've tried everything to track that cruise line. Reverse image searched the ship photos, called the Miami Port Authority. No record, no ocean dreamer. My credit card was never charged. I've read about phantom trains, lost highways, people stepping briefly into another world that only half wants them. I think that's what happened. I don't know why I was chosen or if I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Sometimes, late at night, my phone blinks awake. The time always says 4:44 p.m. And once, while scrolling, I found a photo in my gallery I never took. A man in white linen, seated at the table, raising a spoon to his lips. This happened to me in early 2022, on a cruise ship from San Diego down to Cabo San Lucas. I booked the trip on a whim. My long-term relationship had just imploded. My job was grinding me into dust, and I'd spent most of that winter glued to my phone, doom scrolling myself into what felt like a quiet breakdown. So I decided to go on a cruise, alone, disconnect, reset, and maybe remember who I was before burnout became my entire personality. It was a mid-sized ship, around 2,000 passengers. Nothing too flashy. I splurged on a solo interior cabin, room 618, deck 6. No windows, just a queen bed and a desk with air-conditioned silence. I actually loved it, like sleeping in a sensory deprivation chamber. I didn't expect to spend most of the cruise too afraid to sleep. Day 1 to 2. The first 2 days were blissfully uneventful. I read on the top deck, drank cocktails alone without feeling weird about it, even joined the trivia night. The solitude felt like freedom, like exhaling after holding my breath for months. On the second night, I crashed early after walking laps on the upper deck, around 2:30 a.m. I half woke to the ground of three slow knocks. I remember, because it didn't sound like it came from the door. It was closer, softer, like it came from inside the room. I sat up and turned on the light. Nothing. Checked the bathroom, the closet, even the vent. Empty. I figured I was dreaming. Classic post-REM auditory hallucination or whatever. I went back to sleep. Day 3. At breakfast the next day, I mentioned it offhand to a couple of people I'd met the day before. Tim and Sarah from Portland. Tim laughed and said, "You got a ghost, bro. Better call the front desk before it starts levitating on your luggage." Sarah didn't laugh. She asked which room I was in. I told her. Her face changed. "It's right next to 616, isn't it?" I asked why that mattered. She said, "Don't quote me on this, but I read something on Cruise Critic before we booked. Some guy went overboard from that room a few years ago, and they never found the body." I didn't sleep that night. Day 4. I kept a reading light on and stayed up journaling around 2:30 a.m. I started to feel off, like the pressure in the room had changed. My ears popped slightly, like we were gaining altitude. I noticed the AC had stopped humming. The air felt thick. Then I heard it. Shallow breathing. Ragged. Wet. It wasn't mine. The light flickered, just once. But when it came back, someone was sitting on the edge of the other bed. A man. Drenched from head to toe. Clothes sticking to his frame like he'd just been dragged out of the ocean. His head was bowed. Hair matted over his face. I couldn't see his eyes. He didn't move, just existed like static on an old TV screen. He was frozen. I didn't mean I hesitated. I mean I literally couldn't move. My limbs were cinder blocks. My voice caught in my throat like it had been swallowed. Then he stood up, slowly. He walked, not toward the door, but toward the wall next to the bathroom and kept walking through it. When he disappeared, the AC kicked back on. The room felt normal again. I didn't sleep. I sat up, lights on, until dawn. Day 5. That morning, I went straight to guest service. I didn't want to be dramatic, so I framed it like a noise complaint at first. The crew member was polite until I mentioned the man, the wet clothes, the breathing. Her entire demeanor changed. She typed something on her screen, looked at me, and asked, "You said you're in 618, right?" I nodded. Then, in the quietest voice imaginable, she said, "He's usually seen in 616." I asked what that meant. She hesitated, then told me that about 5 years ago, a man jumped overboard in the middle of the night. He was a solo traveler. Cameras caught him walking out on the outer promenade around 2:30 a.m. He leaned on the railing for several minutes, then climbed over and just let go. There was no struggle, no suicide note, just the sea. Some guests, always the cabin near his, have reported strange events ever since. Knocking, breathing, a soaking wet man sitting silently in the dark. Some even reported him standing over them while they sleep. I asked what happened to the room 616. She said it's no longer sold to passengers, officially. It's used for storage. I walked by it that evening. The door looked like any other, except for a strange, round stain just outside it on the carpet. Like water had pooled there. It hadn't even rained in days. Day 6 to 7. I left the bathroom light on both nights. I barely slept. When I did doze off, I dreamed of deep water, of sinking, of someone pulling me down by the ankles. One night, I woke up choking on air so humid it felt like mist. I thought about asking for a new room, but I didn't want to know if the same thing would follow me. Back home, I assumed it would stop when I got home. It didn't. A week after the trip, I was in a hotel for work. Middle of the night, woke up from a dead sleep. My clock read 2:34 a.m. Then, from the wall behind my bed. That wall was shared with the elevator shaft. The next night, at home in my apartment, it happened again. 3 slow knocks, this time from my closet. I tore it open, nothing inside, but the carpet was wet. I've saged, I've prayed, I've seen 2 psychics, one Catholic priest, and a medium refuse to enter my home. They all said the same thing. Whatever followed you didn't drown. It's still looking for the surface.